Welcome to Let's Talk Transport. Today's topic is going to be purchasing a used vehicle, specifically what you as a buyer need to look for and to look out for when purchasing a used vehicle. Buying new is as easy as grocery shopping these days. You go to a dealer, pick the preferred color and shape, make a deposit, and drive out the lot. Buying used is a lot more complex process, and there are a few things that you need to keep in mind as a buyer when you're purchasing a used vehicle. Disclaimer, this video is applicable to buyers in Canada and the United States, as most provinces, territories, and states do not require mandatory annual vehicle safety inspection, like, for example, in most countries of Europe. The very first thing that you need to look for when checking out a used car are maintenance receipts. Why is it important? Well, as I mentioned earlier in the disclaimer, used cars in the US and Canada do not have to go through mandatory annual safety inspection, and as a result, used cars are a bit of an unknown in terms of their mechanical condition. So if you do not feel like spending anywhere from $200 to $300 on pre-purchase inspection, referring to maintenance receipts will generally give you a good reference point. Just by looking at the maintenance receipts, you can tell whether the brakes are still good or whether the tires are getting old. In this day and age, a lot of people are performing regular maintenance themselves, and that's okay for as long as you can refer back and see when the certain part was replaced. Secondly, check out the interior of the car. You can tell so much about the owner of the car and the car itself by just looking at the interior. If it's clean and it smells fresh, then it's a good sign that the previous owner had cared for the car. And as such, this can likely indicate that he did his best to stay on top of regular maintenance. Numero 3. In sales, there is a saying, you aren't selling just the car, you're selling yourself as well. Look at the owner. Is the owner neat? How does the house look? What about the neighborhood? In layman terms, all of those things can give you a good idea whether the owner had the means to maintain the car. Mind you, everyone is different, so the looks might be deceiving, but this advice might be good to keep in mind as a guideline when you're looking to buy a used car. Number 4, mechanical condition. If you are not mechanically inclined, please have someone with you who is mechanically inclined. If you are though, then you need to pay attention to the following things. During this stationary, so to speak, inspection, there are 4 things that you need to do. First, look at the body and the underbody. Make sure that there is no rust or evidence of previous accidents. While most minor accidents result in damage that can be easily fixed, you probably want to stay away from the car that has been in a serious accident or has extensive corrosion throughout the car. Number 2 is, inspect the engine for any leaks, both from the top and the bottom. Check the oil in the engine. It should have clear amber color to it. While most oil leaks can be easily repaired by replacing the old gasket with a new one, sometimes, and I mean sometimes, those gaskets end up being in a very far and remote areas of the engine and transmission. As a result, you would have to have a professional mechanic come in and replace that for you. Obviously, that's going to cost you a pretty penny, so probably don't want to go down that route. But if it's something simple like a valve cover gasket, that should not deter you from buying the car. Caution, run away if you find freshly brewed cappuccino in the engine instead of motor oil, since that is a telltale sign of a blown head gasket. Number 3, start the engine. Make sure that the engine is running smooth and there are no knocking or winding or grinding noises coming from it, and that there is no smoke bellowing out the exhaust pipe. Mind you, a slight clear mist is normal if the engine is cold and the car has been sitting for a while. Number 4, inspect the suspension, specifically the condition of rubber components like tie rod boots and ball joints and bushings, etc. If you see torn rubber boots or cracked rubber bushings, that's usually an indicator that those pieces are worn and will need to be replaced fairly soon. Now it's the time to take the car for a test drive. Listen for any suspension noises like pops and bangs and rattles. If you hear anything of that sort, the suspension components are likely worn and would need to be replaced in the future. The other thing that you need to do when you're driving a car is, make sure that the car drives straight and there are no vibrations coming through either the body, the pedals, or the steering wheel. This is true for accelerating, cruise, and decelerating. Generally speaking, you do not want the car to have any vibrations during driving. If you feel like the car is shaking, it can be anything from old brakes and unbalanced wheels to worn drive shafts and worn suspension components. Pay attention to how the transmission is working as well. If it is an automatic transmission, the gear changes should be nice and smooth and seamless. Also, there should be no long gaps between the time that you actually select the gear and the time that it engages. Rough gear shifts is a common sign for old and tired transmission. If it is a manual transmission, make sure that, there is no grinding in transmission when you're shifting gears. Grinding noise during the gear shifts generally indicates that the synchros are worn out. And once the car is warmed up and you've driven it around a bit, test out the clutch to make sure it's not slipping. There's a ton of videos on this topic on YouTube, so just look it up. It's nice and easy. So here are the final points. If you like the car and everything checks out mechanically and otherwise, make an offer. More often than not, sellers price their cars higher than the amount that they actually want to get for it. So there's no harm in asking. The worst thing that's going to happen, you're just going to say no. So there you have it. If the video has been helpful and educational, please make sure to hit that like button for YouTube algorithm and subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.